Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are checking in with War Thunder Naval a little over a month after the Leviathans update came out. Now, if you are unaware of what the Leviathans update is and why it's a big thing, it was the update that finally brought all of those big name battleships to the game. So like the Yamato, the Iowa, the Bismarck, so forth and so on. You know, those big gun, last generation of battleships that we all heard so much about on the History Channel after getting home from school in the evening, right? So the ships that normally start people on their slippery slope of boatism, right? And then we get sucked into the rest of naval history and such. So the gateway drugs, if you will. Now, War Thunder Naval had been without a lot of these big names for quite some time. And don't get me wrong, like the ships they had in game before these big name battleships got added in, yeah, they were historically significant ships. I'm not trying to talk them down or anything, but these are the big names that get people into the genre, and they're typically what most players go for right away when they get into the game. Like World of Warships, the Montana line, right? That's like 80% of North America's players start out grinding out the Montana, typically going after the Iowa. That's most certainly where I started out my adventure in this genre, back in, 2017-ish, right? But War Thunder Naval, of course, launched without that. It was just small boats back in the day, and then they went and expanded onto destroyers, and slowly over the years they've been adding more to the game, like drip feeding content into Naval. And then all of a sudden in one update we get all these big name battleships. So a lot of people are pretty hyped because it's like, okay, finally we're getting these big name, big gun battleships into the game. This is going to bring a lot of people back and it might save the mode. Well, we're checking it out a little over a month after the Leviathans update went live, and nah, it's pretty dead. It's not quite back down to pre-Leviathan levels just yet. In that, in the few matches I played tonight, and for reference, I'm playing Friday evening around 9 to 10, 10:30, 11-ish p.m. U.S. Central Time. The teams are typically just under half actual players. The rest of the team are bots. So we're back to majority bot teams yet again. But again, not quite to the level of there's 3 real players per side. Usually it's 4 or 5 at the moment. One game I had, it was just right at half real players. So that's a little bit of an improvement, but it's a far fall from where we were at when the Leviathans update came out, where it was like, oh, there's only 2 bots per side now, right? And the rest are real players. So it's back to being pretty dead, which isn't actually a bad thing in my mind. Why? Well, you see, the bots seem to be, in most cases, the only ones willing to actually push up in War Thunder Naval and get out of spawn. If you recall, you can go back and watch my last War Thunder Naval video when we talk about Leviathans after it came out, and you'll notice that besides myself and maybe one other guy on the enemy team, what does everyone do? They sit in spawn and they just snipe the entire friggin' match. You literally sit there, not even moving, and you just trade blows, which is really frickin' boring. In my personal opinion, I've seen others state this too, the golden range for War Thunder Naval is about 9-ish kilometers. Because at that range, you still have to, take account, your ship's movements and the other guy's movements, and you still gotta wait a second for your shells to get there, but you're not waiting, 20 seconds for your shells to land, and it's a little bit more, fast-paced, and that's where the mode really shines, from 9 kilometers in my opinion. Short of getting point blank range. At point blank range, everything starts to get a little screwy with the aiming system and such, but 9 kilometers to 2 kilometers, that's where there's a lot of fun to be had in the mode, in my opinion. But since everyone's parked in the back and just sniping from spawn to spawn, really boring, really freaking boring. But since there aren't a whole lot of actual players playing anymore, they have been replaced with the bots, who are not afraid to just W key right into the enemy team, or into one another in a lot of cases, and then that's actually pretty fun when you have the bots to play with, in my opinion, and getting more of those close range engagements and such. And keep in mind, we're still talking about 10-11 kilometer engagements, which That might sound close to, a lot of us World of Warships players out there, but that's actually pretty far in War Thunder's scale because it uses a much more realistic scale than World of Warships does. That's actually pretty good in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does kind of suck when you do sink someone and you realize, oh wait, it's just a bot, but it's like, okay, well, I had fun doing that, unlike, me trying to counter snipe the Yami or whatever Japanese battleships at the back of the map, or me trying to hit the Fatal ship, the American Fatal ship that's also chilling in the back of the map. It's there's definitely certainly fun to be had here, and like, don't get me wrong as well, like the mechanics and such of War Thunder Naval, I get it, and there are moments where things do click, and it starts to make sense, and it's like, okay, I'm getting the aiming system now, I'm getting the hang of it. And, this happens every time because I'll usually play War Thunder Naval for a bit. I'll take a break because I get just so burnt out on it. And then I come back and I got to kind of, pick it back up, relearn, the mechanics and such. And it's like, okay, yeah, I remember how this works. And then things start clicking. And it starts to get a little bit better. But then I usually just find myself there just kind of forcing myself to play through it just to check in on it and such. And it gets kind of monotonous after a while because, again, when you're fighting against real players, you're just really sitting there trading blows from what feels like almost max range, at least from the spawn point, right? And it doesn't really feel that dynamic. But then again, when you have the bots that that'll actually push up and stuff, things can get a little interesting and such. And you might find yourself in a more close quarters battle and all that jazz, and that's pretty good. And what I usually like to do is I'll try to flank around and try to get close to the enemy team, because typically where the heavy fleet spawns are at, they're pretty open, so I'll rush to an island or something and try to work my way around and get close to the enemy team. Unfortunately, in this case here, as you'll see, there's some medieval king decided to build a massive bridge across this waterway, so it kind of, cucked me there with trying to get around and getting close to the enemy team, just walk up to him with the Bismarck. But, yeah, that's typically what I like to do. And, sometimes the game will actually, let you get to the point where you can, get close into the enemy team. But a lot of times, too, these matches are very much like World of Warships. Seem to be very one-sided a lot. So there's also that. And then there's, of course, the guy that he gets sunk right away, but he has enough points to spawn in a bomber or something, and he spawns in, and then since you're all going out by yourself, trying to flank around, you are the recipient of his bomb, and if he puts in the right place, which apparently isn't too hard, right? There goes your ship thanks to a single bomb, because War Thunder, right? So, yeah, I don't mind the matches being half bots because they're pretty fun to play with, at least compared to the real people sitting in the back sniping. And that was already a problem beforehand, but when Leviathan came out and you give people larger, more accurate guns, and just the way that the War Thunder damage system works, right, basically whoever has the biggest gun with the most pin, they're going to win the engagement. That's how it works in ground, that's how it works in naval for sure. So yeah, the other good thing about bots is that, of course, you can get kills, so you can bring in a little bit more RP and such, which is still another just incredible downside of Naval. The economy is terrible. It's great for Civil Alliance, don't get me wrong. It's fantastic for that, but like the RP output is just ludicrous, and I suspect it's because they know half the players most of the time are bots. But it's like you get these matches where if this was like an air realistic match or a ground realistic match, and you walk out of that match with this many kills, you'd have so much freaking RP at the end of that match, right? Meanwhile, over here in Naval, you get like a mediocre amount of RP, and it's like, really? I gotta grind out like 300,000 of this for my next high tier ship, and I just get, crumbs for what I pulled off in Naval. It's a little frustrating, but the bots do help. Again, when you run to the mostly bot matches, it does really help, pad your stats a little bit and get you a little bit more RP at the end of the match. And, we're back to the 5-minute queues, too. Granted, the first couple of games I did have 5-minute queues. The next couple, one was like 220, 230. Next one was actually only like a minute and 30, minute and 40, but I think it was just the same group of players that Matchmaker put together after that second 5-minute round. We just kept playing together. So I think that was the case there. But yeah, we're back to the longer matchmaking times. Again, that was a good thing about Leviathans when it did come out. Of course, since more people are playing, the matchmaking times are way, way down. So yeah, it's looking like it's just going to go back to how it was beforehand, which honestly, again, it's not really the end of the world in my opinion. I'll be sailing around my Bismarck, beating up bots in War Thunder Naval every couple of weeks, checking it out from here on out. But yeah, it looks like a lot of the predictions were true in that, sure, there's going to be a big surge when the update came out, but the mode was eventually going to basically go back to what it was beforehand. I will be interested to see what Gaijin does next. There's not really much left after the ships that they've added in now, and who knows what they'll do. Maybe they'll take the wargaming route, start making some stuff up. I know they can definitely go back in. There's plenty of holes in the tech lines for them to fill in. Like again with the Iowa, you go from the frickin' Colorado to the Iowa. No North Carolina, no South Dakota class, just straight to the Iowa, which is wild. So they'll probably go back in, fill in those holes, or they may just kind of put it into, just service mode now, where they just keep the service up, maybe release, some bug fixes every now and then. They don't really touch it too much anymore. This did kind of feel like their last big entry in the mode. I mean, who knows? They might bring in freaking missile cruisers and stuff next, for all I know. But I'm just saying, they ain't got too many options left at this point. So I guess we'll see what happens. So guys, that's me just checking in with War Thunder Naval a month or so after the release of the Leviathans update. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments down below. Have you been playing? You pick it up when the update came out, and now you're just kind of about it. Please share all that and more with us in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Sunday and a wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.